throughout the course of the day, because if you are very active during the weekend, you'd realize that a lot of things have come up. And so this week is definitely going to be a very conversation intense week. And as I said earlier, before we delve into all of that, let us get into the spirit, into the mood of festivities. It's less than 3 days to Christmas, and we're very excited. I know it might be very difficult to balance the feeling of celebration with the feeling of hopelessness, that have become quite common within the average Nigerian person. We understand what the situation might be, but I think being able to find joy in chaos is a skill that we would have to learn. And I do see that there's some people who are already having fun. A lot of people have started traveling. Most organizations are already on break for the Christmas holiday, but of course, as a media enterprise, we don't enjoy that luxury. No complaint whatsoever. We deliberately put ourselves in this condition. We would still do our job. So whilst you're at home with your family, eating rice, even if it's yam you can afford, or if it is anything that you're doing with your family, it really is about the people around you. It's not about the chicken. It's not about the rice. It's not about the drinks. It's about people. And so if you have your family with you, if you have your friends with you, if you have your colleagues with you, if you are in the midst of people you know love you and people that you love, I can assure you that is the most important part of the festivity. So let's go into Christmas. Let's start to go into the new year with hope in our hearts and smiles on our faces. My name is Sage Babalola. Welcome once again to Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. It's the Morning Express, 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. That is the duration of the Morning Express, and we often give you news information. We analyze the newspapers. We give you an update into what's going on in the world of business, amongst other things. The programs will be highlighted as we go further into the day. Welcome once again to radio. Let's look at weekend stories that trended across the weekend before we delve into the most recent stories of this morning. The Punch had reported, publish certified copies of tax laws from National Assembly, Serap urges Tinubu. Yuletide, fare hikes legal, but exploitation would not be tolerated, says FCCPC. Recalled Indomie noodles flavor not in Nigerian market, says NAFDAC. PDP, Wike Makinde forces adamant despite INEC's intervention. Alleged alterations, presidency kicks as Atiku Obi fight tax laws. APC chieftain Atiku's ex-spokesman knock senior advocate of Nigeria over one-party claim. The Guardian over the weekend reported the following stories. ICPC invites Dangote over petition against ex-NMDPRA boss for as Alaafin confers chieftaincy title on Sheikh Tinubu, Senator Yari. U.S. signed health deal to aid Christians in Nigeria. PDP Jigawa condemns suspension of Lamido, calls for immediate reversal. Cabals hijacked Aso Villa under Buhari, Aisha Buhari says. APC schedules national convention for March 2026. Political crisis slowed governance, says Fubara. And Gige denies involvement in alleged 2.2 billion naira fraud, says my hands are clean. And finally, for Guardian weekend story, Davido bets $25,000 on goals in Super Eagles AFCON opener. Finally, for Vanguard, remaining 130 abducted Niger pupils released. 2027, Obi slams rep for failing to criminalize vote buying. Dangote Petroleum Refinery loads over 2,000 trucks daily. And that is all the information we have for you. That is a summary of the reports that trended over the course of the weekend. If you would like to participate in this conversation, or you'd like to see what's happening in the studio, please do well to join our live stream. You can actually comment in real time. That's one of the advantages you enjoy when you're on the live stream. Typically for Mainland Focus, we pick 2 stories, but there are people who are able to address these stories as we go through them if they join our social media platform. There's a live chat option there that you can drop your comments on each story, so you get to enjoy that experience. You also get to enjoy an audio visual experience as well. You can see what's happening in the studio as you go along with us. So please join our live stream on Facebook and on YouTube at Mainland 98.3 FM. We also have a very functional website where you can familiarize yourself with the programs, the timing, and also the broadcasters in charge that we have on our hands. For outside, good morning, Merry Christmas in advance, Happy New Year in advance, everything in advance.
Same to you. Good morning.
Good morning. If there's anything I really like about this place is the fact that Christian, Muslims, idol worshiper, everybody, we celebrate each holiday amongst ourselves. When it's, Ramadan,
I was expecting to hear what you would say, and that's why.
I wanted to smuggle it into the, Christmas is every day, even when your day is fine, I'll bring food for everybody. So
this is it.
I will still it's fun.
Anyways,
that's a good thing. I mean, it's just
thank God
how
for
we
life.
operate here. We thank God for life. I hope you had a great weekend. I mean, I know you had a great weekend, but you were perplexed all through the weekend. You were so disappointed in a lot of things that happened. I could tell from the show yesterday.
Anyways, it's something that we have got to be very familiar with. Really. It's just what it is, You look at the trajectory of things, you look at where we're going, and you just wonder what's going on with us as people. And to also think that, you respect that to the table, you just go, very funny, for want of a better word. And again, I think we just have to learn to live with the fact that, look, the multitude would always be what they are, Again, when it comes to critical thinking and seeing crucial issues, and hope that while we do our own, piece of nation building, they would also understand that, look, it's just very important that we're on the same page to ensure Nigeria becomes great again. But we will not back down, or will not get tired. It's something we have signed up to do and will continue to do so.
Indeed. I don't envy you at all. And I don't envy any broadcaster at the moment or any analyst at the moment. Well, Fuad, I would like us to start the conversation by talking about the 130 pupils that have now been rescued. The Papiri abduction in Niger State that happened, remember, 50 of them had escaped. The government was able to secure the release of 100. And then finally, the last batch or tranche of abducted students and the teachers have finally been released. As much as the question of how were they released continues to linger in the air, I think that we are at the point where we're no longer asking that question, important questions that are yet to be answered. Where are the perpetrators blamed the school at the beginning that a security advisory had been given in earlier weeks that all schools should remain shut down, and so St. Mary Catholic School decided to open regardless of the advisory, but we're way past that now. I would like your general comment on prevent a recurrence of this very unfortunate situation.
Well, I think the first thing to say is to be happy, at least be very happy with parents of these children who have been traumatized, who must have been very traumatized by the announcement of the abduction of their children from school. Again, we also have to at least be grateful to God that these children have now been released after close to 3 weeks now, or 2 weeks, in the den of these deranged elements. Because again, no children should be made to have that kind of experience, if you understand what I'm saying. It's unfortunate that, look, we're in a situation where this is now happening. We grew up as children in this country, and there was no news of such. That's why some of us keep wondering, how did we get to this stage? So it is to be grateful to God that, well, whatever must have been done, at least what you want to call them. But there's a question as to the situation of the teachers, because we keep talking about children. I think they were also abducted with some teachers.
12.
But, so were they also released? If you look at the reports very well, nobody's even, while the spokesperson to the presidency, there are too many spokespersons. Maybe I don't know which of them put out the statement now, but discredited to one of them, has said that none of the children is left in captivity. But we would like to ask what has happened to the teachers. Have they also been released? They've been released after weeks, days. And all we hear is that they've been released. You ask yourself, what about the abductors? What has happened to them? Did we allow them to just go like that? Was ransom paid? Those are critical questions that how happens to start again to talk about it. What is the government doing to ensure that things like this does not happen again? Because again, we are talking of the storming of our schools and abduction of our children from school en masse that started all the way, I think, from 2014, 2015. And 10 years down the line, the story is still the same. We have not been able to nip that in the bud. So going forward, the question the government needs to answer is to tell us what they are doing, what they will be doing to ensure we don't have a repeat of things like this. In fact, there's a video that is trending on social media of, I think, church worshippers at the Ekwa Church in Kogi State. The visuals are extremely depressing. See, adults, the children particularly, are how terrified they look, being paraded by these bandits to put it there. I must say that, look, it's unfortunate that we're in this situation. So it is left for the government to assure Nigerians that they are capable to secure their lives and properties. That is now the call to government to make. It must be able to tell Nigerians what they really want to do. And it's not just about what they say. It is until when we begin to see that things like this do not repeat itself that we now begin to trust the government that they've been able to really solve the problem.
Well, we're grateful for their release, but then, as you've said, we need to ensure that this doesn't happen again. It's a routine. For what side, also over the weekend, the president, well, not over the weekend, it was on Friday, we saw that the president had presented the 2026 budget to the 76 budget is somewhat realistic as opposed to what we saw in 2025, where projected crude oil production was 2 million barrels per day, and the expectations for revenue was very unrealistic. But that for 2026, we've seen a reduction in these things, albeit maybe insignificant, but it's more a realize of the budget. And debt servicing sadly is still around 15 trillion naira, and projected revenue is about 34 trillion naira. The oil benchmark, however, have been reduced to $64 per barrel. Oil production has also been reduced to 1.84 million barrels per day. The exchange rate is not about 1,400. 1,400. And inflation is projected at 16.5%. So I did listen to Muda Yusuf yesterday in an interview where he says that, well, we're not there yet. However, the situation in even your biggest oil producing state was unrealistic. And he says he still worries, though, about the 2024-2025 budget situation. And hopefully by March of next year, we would have exhausted 2024-2025 and we'll be able to go back to the January to December routine that we had started from the past administration.
Because again, whatever led us into running multiple budgets, I'm not sure we've been able to cancel out those indices. If you understand what I'm saying, there was something that led us. It's not as if it started like that. And if you're looking at March to say, okay, well, everything now comes back to normal, then you may want to ask yourself, what are we changing, or what has changed, or what do we intend to change? Yes, I agree with Dr. Muda Yusuf that this looks more like a realistic budget. The projections, you can see that the government has decided to play down most of the initial projections that we saw in the 2025 budget. Oil benchmark a bit realistic. For those who want to celebrate everything and anything and not get realistic about the reality, you can see that the government itself, in its projection, has decided to peg the dollars to 1.4. So I think the government projection is put at 1,400. Just work with that. Work within 1,004, 1,005 for 2026. So, but this summary 2026. But again, by the time we begin to have the breakdown, a complete bit more prudent, more realistic, more efficient, more transparent in their spendings and projections for 2026 of the budget. Of agencies and parastatals, the projections becomes clearer. We can begin to take a more informed opinion on what the government intends to do. My mind tells you we're going to go beyond 58 trillion. See, the National Assembly, my mind tells you that's going to happen. Because then we'll still have to touch it here and there, going into what the government intends to spend money on. Revenue projection in 2025, a whooping 30 trillion was not realized. There was a shortfall. So for people who celebrate budgetary provisions, it is not as if those things will all be realizable or will be achieved. If in 2028, let's have the details, and then we can have a more informed conversation on the budget.
And most importantly, our primary focus should be our budget performance. But since we're on that subject matter, Fuad Said, before we move to the conversation around the tax laws, because I think that's one of the most controversial, billion naira export loss after Trump tariff. Nigeria's export to the United States fell by reversing the trade balance that favored Nigeria a year earlier. findings from the National Bureau of that Nigeria exported goods worth 3.65 trillion to the United States in the first 9 months of 2025, down from 4.59 trillion in the corresponding period of 1 trillion, an increase of 125.5% 25. I said Fuad, I was going to say Trump. Trump only, and for that 1% increase caused us to import so much from the US and export very, very little. Over the 2024, we actually did a lot more exportation. I think there was a little bit of focus on non-oil products, as much as we still to the US, and then we imported so much. What side? This buy Nigeria if we're at a time where we're importing so heavily and we have little or nothing to export.
Well, the balance of trade with the US, Nigeria, US used to be in our favor.
Yeah.
It's been consistently in our favor for years, which means we exported more to the US than import from the US. We have also seen that, look, according to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, a problem really, because what you have other nations do, what the other nations are doing to address this disruption, what you can call a trade disruption by Donald Trump and the US at this time, to begin to look at new markets. Again, if you ask yourself, of course, I tried to read through the story and did a little research on, okay, what exactly were we importing from the US? And I think top on the list, we have to begin to buy our own cars. So the question is, who are the car manufacturers in Nigeria? Why are Nigerians, confined to buying used cars, rich, for the ordinary Nigerian? So you see that Nigerians, in fact, if you look at 80% of cars on Nigerian roads, to do, like Dr. Tʀᴇɪᴅs had prescribed, is that nations have to calm down a bit more. So what it means is that, look, you are open to being friends with any nation that is welcoming of your post-war investment in infrastructure, investment in education to help with technological innovation is critical at this time for us to begin to look inwards. But ultimately, what we need to do is to understand that the U.S. will continue to be the U.S. They will continue to remain our trade lands. Does not mean we cannot begin to look for new friends. What are we doing with China? What are we doing? You have to invest in manufacturing. You have to invest in agriculture. You have to diversify and begin to see some results in that area.
Right, The Guardian very quickly. Tax reform road deepens as civil society demands probe, flags concern. We have tries to raise alteration. Fix Politics calls for full public as allegations of post-legislative tampering prompt call governance. For outside as expected following information from, I believe, Dansuki, that's the lawmaker representing Sokoto. He had said that there was, and the one that is actually gazetted at the moment, and as expected, opposition has started to raise concern. But let's look at some of the areas for outside that adjustments have been made. It's a lot, but we'll just look at a few. The without a high court order. So this sort of removes judicial protection from all the tax. Companies are expected to make up to 250 million. That's how much money you have to make inside that net. For typically, if you make below 50 million or below 250 million, you're exempt from certain tax obligations. Arrest powers being granted. The lawmaker says tax authority can investigate. If you suspect that these individuals is evading tax, you can, of course, again, these are allegations. 20% deposit before appeal. So if you disagree with the businesses, we know what this means. There's also the removal of the National Assembly oversight, amongst other things. So, Fuad, it begs, you sent something to the Senate for them to debate and pass. They did so. They debated page by page.
And you assented to it.
And
it became law.
Exactly. And then
only for us to say different things.
Extortion, honestly. And so the lawmakers are saying this is not what we're agreed to. You cannot have such affairs, and all the promises that you claim this tax administration is going to do for people.
You see, again, this was one of our major talking points on the roundtable yesterday. I think we took our time to explore powers to the executive. Judicial oversight, taking it to kill them. Because they are just too myopic to see it with levity. For example, it's completely different from what we are seeing in the gazetted copy. Right? Honorable is saying it's true. We are getting to a point where the House of Reps says, okay, there will be making it a criminal matter. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And why it is troubling is that the areas that have been answered oversight has been taken away. Legislative oversight taken away, garnishing powers without court for you to be able to contest it. If this were not in the an investigation into this alteration, if it is true, and that's our position for something like this. Why the alteration if it is true? IRS, they say they don't know anything about it. So at one president that looks the one passed by the National Assembly, if it is true. And why the alteration? What was the alteration? To intimidate Nigerians, to harass Nigerians, to in fact extort Nigerians. So we're waiting to see what is going
understanding of the law, and the entire tax administration bill just has me going on with this tax regime. Taxes is harped on how much money they're able to make from
itself to prosperity.
No, that's not how it works.
What you see, let's do this. Has there been any nation in the world? Especially, we are talking about a country filled with multidimensional poverty, a country where people's purchasing power has been completely eroded. And your plan for prosperity begin to see government spending more to drive the economy to prosperity. This is not to sound alarmist in projection. Certainly in the country, many people can make it make sense at the end of the day. It does not make sense, does not add up.
More MRS filling station in Lagos and Ogun State join in dispensing the premium motor spirits produced by Dangote Petroleum Refinery at 7.39 per litre. Motorists have started boycotting that is far below their cost of purchase, indicating the severity of the price war in the downstream oil sector. Well, Fᴜᴜ following complaints been forced to reduce their pump price by 139 since you're buying for 6.99 from the refinery. And for this forced reduction, filling stations are now empty. Motorists are
and Dangote had made it clear that it's also losing money. He said it. So he's doing it to ensure that he frustrates the marketers who continue to import this and attributing it to. This is something Dangote is doing to keep himself afloat, to remain in business. It's not adding up for him. Any known production indices and calculation is just what you call business environment. Nobody encourages this kind of pricing. To underprice, to frustrate the competitor. Because when you talk about the reduction of, so it's not anything to completely celebrate. Well, momentarily, I'm saying, because it's not as if it is based on any proper indices that takes into account. When are we going to have the competition, a locally based competition in the oil sector, to give more energy, more vibes, more strength to our own local refineries, at least to encourage even more people to invest. After Dangote refinery came on upstream, with the promise we'll be in a situation where Dangote is competing with Port Harcourt working, Kaduna working, Warri working, because the liars of the NNPC.
I think so far 91 billion is how much.
I'll continue to lose that kind of money.
Yeah, so
and that's why you can see that his pain and frustration.
Yeah.
So it's not a happy man. Yes,
money to lose just to prove points, and he's going to have to fight
just to fight the other people.
Billion INEC spending under Yakubu. Unfortunately, we might not be able to take analysis of the year 2022. We saw that deductions by the Commission between 2018 and 2019 under Mahmoud is not painting a very good picture. 288 billion so far. There's a need for an explanation on how that was spent. Fᴜᴜ, thank you for your analysis. As always, we'll be back.